An international group of scientific experts came out today and said in no uncertain terms, global warming is real and it's almost certainly caused by what we humans do to
remote places on Earth. This is where global warming is very real.
Our children and grandchildren will ask one of two questions. They will look back at us in 2007 at the beginning of the 21st century, and either they will ask, what were they thinking? Didn't they hear the scientists? Didn't they see? Were they too busy, distracted, or greedy? Didn't they care? Or they will ask a second question, the one I much prefer that they ask. I want them to ask of us, how did they get their act together and find the uncommon moral courage to rise and successfully solve the climate crisis?
Sunrise, what about rain? What about all the things that you said we were to gain? What about killing fear? Is there a time? All the things that you said was yours and mine. Did you ever stop to notice all the blood we shed before? This notice, this crying earth, this weeping shore. What we've done with all the peace that the sun. What about flowering fields? Is there a time? What about all the dreams that you said was yours and mine? Stop to notice all the children dead from war. Did you ever stop to notice this crying earth, this
2.5 million years, the Earth's climate has fluctuated, cycling from ice ages to warmer periods. But in the last century, the planet's temperature has risen unusually fast, about 1.2 to 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Scientists believe it's human activity that's driving the temperatures up, a process known as global warming. Ever since the Industrial Revolution began, factories, power plants, and eventually cars have burned fossil fuels such as oil and coal, releasing huge amounts of carbon dioxide and other gases into the atmosphere. These greenhouse gases trap heat near the Earth through a naturally occurring process called the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect begins with the sun and the energy it radiates to the Earth. The Earth and the atmosphere absorb some of this energy, while the rest is radiated back into space. Naturally occurring gases in the atmosphere trap some of this energy and reflect it back, warming the Earth. Occurring gases in the atmosphere trap some of this energy and reflect it back, warming the Earth. Scientists now believe that the greenhouse effect is being intensified by the extra greenhouse gases that humans have released. Evidence for global warming includes a recent string of very warm years. Scientists report that 1998 was the warmest year in measured history, with 2005 coming in second. Meanwhile, readings taken from ice cores show that the greenhouse gases carbon dioxide and methane have hit their highest levels in the past 420,000 years. Arctic sea ice is also shrinking. According to NASA studies, the extent of Arctic sea ice has declined about 10% in the last 30 years. As long as industrialized nations consume energy and developing countries increase their climate models predict changes. Others forecast rising sea levels which could flood coastal areas around the world. Weather patterns could change, making hurricanes more frequent. Severe droughts could become more common in warm areas, and species unable to adapt to the changing conditions would face extinction. Although much remains to be learned about global warming, many organizations advocate cutting greenhouse gas emissions to reduce the impact of global warming. Consumers can help by saving energy around the house, switching to compact fluorescent light bulbs, and driving fewer miles in the car each week. These simple changes may help keep the Earth cooler in the future.
Next. By now, you probably know my stance on global warming, but if you're, just stumble across and you're sitting there in your underpants watching TV, let me explain. The Earth has warmed. I don't think that there's anywhere near enough conclusive evidence to prove that Miami is going to be under, 20 feet of water anytime soon unless we all start panicking immediately. But I do believe that global warming has become more about politics and the redistribution of wealth than some altruistic notion of saving the planet for some people. And today, the real story is that the most unlikely of organizations, PETA, a group that I literally have nothing in common with, PETA, has helped make my point even more apparent today. Now, I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure that PETA, not really a fan of this show. I mean, I like to eat a nice pink-in-the-middle filet stuffed with ham, topped with chicken, while wearing a full leather bodysuit. I do. I'm wearing a leather belt right now. But thanks to global warming, PETA and I, tonight, have some common ground. In a letter to Al Gore yesterday, PETA nicely explained to him that the single best way for an individual to fight global warming is to become a vegetarian. In fact, according to the United Nations, an organization that Al Gore is usually quite fond of citing, quote, raising animals for food generates more greenhouse gases than all of the trucks and the cars in the world combined. That's not from PETA, that's from the UN. But it's not just them. University researchers have also determined that switching to a vegan diet has more of an impact on global warming than switching your car from a Camry to a Prius. Now, Mr. Gore, I understand. You can't change your carbon footprint easily. I mean this. You do have to fly around and give speeches. A lot of those panic speeches are really good. Anyway, but what about your meat footprint? Seriously, if you honestly, and I mean this sincerely, the key word here is honestly. If you honestly believe that global warming is the most important issue the world faces, bigger than terrorism, bigger than AIDS, bigger than hunger, then why haven't you started eating veggie burgers and drinking soy milk? I hear it's yummy. PETA's letter says it best. Quote, one good way to hush Rush Limbaugh and his ilk, I think they're talking about me, is to act as a role model in the fight against global warming and becoming personally a vegetarian. Al, I couldn't agree more with PETA. I don't think I've ever said that. I agree with PETA. If you want to insulate yourself from criticism, then don't be a hypocrite. Live the life you preach. But this isn't just about Al Gore. It's about all of the people who champion drastic lifestyle changes without leading by example. And since most of them love to use panic and fear as a motivational tool, I thought we'd give them a little taste of their own medicine tonight. Saying. Matt Prescott, PETA's vegan campaign manager. Matt, what's the deal? What's the beef?
Well, the beef is that all of the livestock in America produce about 130 times as much waste as the human population of America. Where do you think all that goes? It goes into our land, it goes into our rivers, it goes into the air. And so bad that in California, women living downwind of a dairy farm were found to be having miscarriages from the toxic fumes coming from the dairy farm.
Okay. There's a 400-page report that came out last year from the UN called Livestock's Long Shadow. Why do you suppose the global warming people are completely ignoring this?
You know, like most politicians, Gore is beholden to his contributors. He's beholden to high-paid lobbyists like those from the meat industry. It's probably
so like
one
Frank
reason.
Perdue is behind this?
Yeah, it's probably one reason why.
Because I think that's baloney.
Well, you know, farmed animals are exempt from all federal laws protecting them from cruelty. Almost all farmed animals. That's probably one reason why. It's, you know, I imagine that for Gore, admitting that the meat industry is horrible for the environment is probably just too inconvenient a truth.
So what do you think about an inconvenient truth? Because that's nowhere in there.
You know, one problem with Gore's solutions is that he doesn't offer anything that's accessible to people. Most people can't afford a $20,000 Prius or expensive energy-saving light bulbs. He doesn't offer people the chance to go vegetarian or the suggestion. It's free. It's something everybody can do. There's vegetarian options at every grocery store and restaurant. It's the most accessible way and the most effective way to help curtail global warming.
Okay. Are there any global warming activists? Because you know what? One guy I actually can't believe I'm saying this either. So my gosh, I've agreed with Rosie O'Donnell and PETA. I mean, it's
a banner day for
Jerry Falwell. I agreed with him today. I mean, I think I'm going schizophrenic.
It's a banner day.
It is. Is there? I have respect for Leonardo DiCaprio because I think he lives the lifestyle until I found out about the vegan thing. Is he a vegetarian or a vegan?
I believe he's vegetarian. He may be vegan. I know there are a lot of others. Joaquin Phoenix is a vegan. Woody Harrelson is a vegan. The list goes on and on.
All right. So you've got some vegans out there. Is there anybody that could have the credibility to talk about global warming?
Well, if Al Gore went vegetarian, he certainly would be a good candidate. So many people listen to him that if he were to suggest people the fact that going vegetarian, simply just cutting the meat out of your diet, is the best way to help the environment, which scientists now know is true, then he could really have a major influence. And the fact that he doesn't suggest that is a pretty big problem.
Okay, now is there a way to find out my meat footprint? Because I imagine my meat footprint is enormous.
Well, let's see. We know that the average meat eater uses about 4,000 gallons of water a day, and the average vegetarian about 300. So over a year, I guess you probably use about 1.5 million gallons of water, and I probably use about maybe 10,000 or something, 100,000.
Sure.
So
is there a way to offset my meat footprint? Can I buy like protein points?
Well, you can.
Extremely dangerous, because with our present knowledge we have no idea what would happen. Even now, man may be unwittingly changing the world's climate through the waste products of his civilization. More than 6 billion tons of carbon dioxide, which helps air absorb heat from the sun. Our atmosphere seems to be getting warmer.
This is bad?
Well, it's been calculated a few degrees rise in the Earth's temperature would melt the polar ice caps. And if this happens, an inland sea would fill a good portion of the Mississippi Valley. Tourists in glass-bottomed boats would be viewing the drowned towers of Miami through 150 feet of tropical water. For in weather, we're not only dealing with forces of a far greater variety than even the atomic physicist encounters, but with life itself.